Well, hello everyone. I'm Tyler Chrestman, and welcome to the Chrestman Conversation. I know what you're all thinking. Where have I been? We just went through the most contentious election of all time, and Tyler, you disappeared on us. You've been gone for about 3 weeks. Where have you been? Well, the truth is, I've been on vacation, been doing some soul searching, been out there in the wilderness. I have not been very active at all. I haven't been writing anything for any of my political sites. I haven't been doing anything. I have taken a mental break, and it was very refreshing, very invigorating, and I feel back and ready to talk about stuff. This election, guys, what? I leave for 3 weeks, and you guys just run amok out there. What's going on? I can't leave you guys alone for a second. This election has been ridiculous. So there's a lot of things I'm going to talk about over the course of the next few days. Today, we're just going to talk about the actual election. It happened. It happened, and it's done. And initially, well, the one thing I think we can all agree with is that the polls were absolutely terrible in this election. They were really bad. In 2016, they were bad, but there was some justification as to that they weren't that bad. This time, they were so bad. They were so wrong that it was ridiculous. It looked like Joe Biden, according to most national consensus polls, he was 8, he was 9 points up. It is not that victory that they were expecting and that anyone was expecting. So initially, that first day, election day, it looked like by the time everyone went to bed, I was telling people, hey, it looks like Donald Trump, he's on track. He's looking good so far. He had jumped up at a big enough lead on that first day. He had jumped up a big enough lead on that first day that I knew that I thought it would be difficult for Biden to pass him, especially he looked good in Wisconsin. He looked good in Georgia, and Pennsylvania was looking real good initially. And so what happened? Why was there that overnight flip? And this is really unfortunate. And I think this was done for a variety of reasons. It was a terrible, awful call. The way that some states, specifically a lot of those battleground states, chose to do their counting was that they counted all the votes from the day of and then counted all the mail-in votes. So there was obviously going to be a difference in mail-in voting and in-person voting. I believe most of the people who wound up voting in person, not most, but no, most is a good word. Most of the people who wound up voting on the day of the election were going to be Republicans, and most of your mail-in votes were going to be Democrats. And so I think it was unfortunate because what happened was you saw Donald Trump jump to a very commanding lead that first day, and then when they started counting the mail-in votes, you saw those states flipped. Even states that I thought for sure were not going to flip. Like, I did not think Pennsylvania was going to flip. Georgia seemed ridiculous to think that was going to flip. I thought Wisconsin looked pretty safe for Trump initially. And so these gigantic leads were cut down dramatically, and then obviously we all know the state of the election were eventually flipped and went to Biden, and Biden won. Looks like he's on track to win, I think, 306 electoral votes. I might be a little off on that, but somewhere around there. About what Donald Trump won in 2016, because a lot of the election looks similar as it did in 2016. There's just a couple states that flipped. And so the optics of this were not good. They were not good whatsoever. And I think that there is a lot to be said about the way that we go about handling elections, because it is, hold on, let me think about how I want to say this. We should all be concerned about the integrity of our election system. Okay, there are, in a country where this many millions of people vote, we are going to find voting irregularities. That's not unusual. It's not uncommon, and it's not necessarily even indication of anything ridiculous. However, we need to investigate all of the irregularities and all of the accusations of fraud. because this is really unfortunate. As somebody who, again, people know me, I take sides on issues, but I don't have a team. I'm not a card-carrying Republican. I am not a Democrat. I don't belong to either party. So I just want things to be better for everyone in reality. I am very critical of both sides when they do things that are ridiculous. It is ridiculous that the media and the Democratic Party seem to be in lockstep with the idea that there is no fraud. Fraud doesn't exist. There's zero incidents of fraud that have ever happened ever in elections, and no fraud is... Why would you even say fraud? Because fraud is just like a dirty word, and you shouldn't say it, and there's no such thing, and you're a conspiracy theorist. That basically is the argument that you've been seeing on the media. They'll say things like, there's no widespread accusations of fraud. Okay, what does widespread constitute? How many votes does it require in order to be widespread? Now, I am in the agreement. It does not look like there's going to be enough cases of fraud and irregularity to overturn the results of the election. But every single one of them should be accounted for. And we know for a fact that there are some cases of fraud. There was one of the... Oh, no. I'm sorry I don't have this right in front of me. There was a person who worked for the Joe Biden campaign down in Texas who was recently arrested for something like 2,000 counts of voter fraud. He was ballot harvesting down in Texas. It is illegal to do, and he got arrested. There's cases of people up in Michigan that have also been arrested at this point. It's just the idea that it doesn't exist is nonsensical. And I wanted to do one on voting integrity prior to the election, because the idea that our voting system is just perfect is just, it astounds me that people believe this. I think it's very good. We have a very good voting system, but it is certainly not the case that it is perfect. And the security of our election is a joke. I honestly believe that. I don't think it's great. And there are certainly things we could do to improve it. For example, we should not be doing widespread mail-in voting. That's just absurd. It really is. If you go to vote in person, you probably shouldn't use a machine. We know for a fact that there were some mistakes made with some of the machines that actually, one of them flipped a race up in Michigan, I believe, that was initially called for a Democrat, and then they found that it wasn't a problem with the system, but it was a problem with a specific county that was doing it wrong. But for whatever reason, it had switched something like 700 to 2,000 votes, somewhere in there, that were Democrat but were actually for a Republican. It wasn't fraud. It wasn't someone did this on purpose, but the machine made a mistake because a human made a mistake. Paper ballots. This is what we should do. Everyone who shows up to vote should have to have a voter ID card or a picture ID. When I say voter ID card, I don't mean that stupid thing that they mail you. I mean, I think we should develop a voter ID system where you go and get a voter card, or you can use a real ID state identification. You should have to show that when you show up to vote. Every 4 years after our presidential election in January of this next year, we should purge all of the voter rolls. This is not a crazy notion. If some point in the next 2 years before you do an election, you cannot figure out how to register to vote, don't vote. This is not disenfranchising anyone, but we have what amounts to millions of people on voter rolls that they no longer belong to because they have moved or they have died. It is ridiculous that we do not purge voter rolls. We should do it once every 4 years at least. Every 4 years after a presidential election. You now have 4 years. Most people don't vote in the midterms. You have 4 years to re-register to vote. And this would be a good idea, because what we actually have counts of dead people casting ballots in this election. Not a lot, admittedly. It is not a lot of people who commit voter fraud. It is not giant and widespread in terms of going to overturn the results of this election. But look back to 2000. Do you think that voter fraud couldn't have, if we're arresting people for what amounts to a couple thousand fraudulent votes, could we not have done that in 2000 when I believe 500 votes separated who became president of the United States? Again, it's not going to happen in this election, but what about future elections? Do we not want a secure system? This is not sour grapes because Donald Trump lost. This is just common sense. I don't understand how sanguine people are about the integrity of our elections. They just pretend that it's okay. It's not okay. There are some major security flaws that everyone should be concerned about. As my little spiel, I'm going to get off my high horse here about voter fraud. It's ridiculous. The whole thing's ridiculous. I want to talk about some of the rhetoric that has been going around about Donald Trump and this whole him not conceding to Joe Biden thing. Let's rewind. Prior to this election, I heard an interview with Al Gore. This was only a week, maybe 2 weeks before the November 3rd. And Al Gore said the main mistake he made in 2000 was he conceded too early. And then when he revoked his concession, he conceded to George Bush, and then it became apparent, oh, we may have actually won. And he had to revoke his concession. And from that point on, everyone just thought he was whinging. He was complaining. He was whining. It was sour grapes. He didn't win, and he's just throwing a fit. And he said that was the biggest mistake he made. And to settle who was president of the United States in 2000, it took 39 days. We are currently 20 days in. The fact that Donald Trump has not conceded does not bother me at all. Let's quit pretending like it's the end of the world. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that people are pretending that he is going to hold up in his office like Scarface at the end of the movie, sniffing cocaine while Secret Service knocks on the door and then busts it down. It's not going to happen, people. Quit living out this weird fantasy that you have, that he is such an authoritative totalitarian that he is just not going to leave office. Donald Trump, he lost this election, is what it looks like. He's going to sue in the places where he thinks he has a case, and then it's going to be settled in the courts. And you know what? When it's settled in the courts, he's going to leave. And you're all going to look like fools. I really think that. The people who are militating on him just, again, they're just fantasizing that he's just not going to leave. You people are just going to look like fools when it comes time for him to transition, pass the keys to the Oval Office over to Joe Biden, and he does so. He's not the most graceful loser in the world. I don't care. I don't care at all. Because provided that these lawsuits all get settled and it turns out that Joe Biden is in fact the president-elect, then if he goes along with it, I don't care if he goes along whining. Why do you care? Why are you pretending? It makes no sense to me. And all these people who compare him to other people, oh, Donald Trump he's a strong man, he's a tyrant, he's an oppressor. When Saddam Hussein took control of Iraq, he had a room full of people. And he read off a list of names. He had a guards come in, and they would grab people, and they took them out back. And he had half of the room shoot and execute the other half of the room. And that was how he took control. He was a tyrant. He was a strong man. Donald Trump is currently suing in court to try and throw out things that may be illegal. Ballots that were cast after were postmarked after the election. Ballots that people were not allowed to witness being counted. This is not the same. And people need to quit being ridiculous. They really do. I'm sorry, I use that word a lot in this podcast, but that's the reaction, the media reaction, the Democratic establishment reaction. They're going up to every Republican in Congress. Have you congratulated President-elect Biden yet? And when they say no, they say, oh my gosh, all these people out here giving cover to Donald Trump as he tries to stage a coup. Stop it. Just stop it. Be a serious person for a minute. If Donald Trump does something that actually undermines this election, then I'll be the first to call him out on it. He's not suing Joe Biden in court for some voting irregularities. Come on. Let's grow up a little, people. that was all I want to say today. Like I said, we're going to do a couple of these probably this week, talking about some various aspects of the election, some of the things we learned, some of the things that we maybe can learn going forward. But for right now, we're going to leave it there. This is just a little brief welcome back. I am sorry for leaving you guys. I hope you missed me. And I think we're going to leave it there. I'm Tyler Chrestman, and I will talk to you guys later.